It was supposed to be a legendary rock tour, rock royalty Aerosmith, taking one of metal's biggest bands, Megadeth, on the road. Depending on what you read, either just after 3 shows or 7 shows, the whole thing imploded. Megadeth was fired, so what on earth did Dave Mustaine say to get his band kicked off tour? Today we're going to look at the explosive story of the Backstage clashes and shocking words that ended one of rock's most infamous pairings in the early 90s. Before we get started, be sure to hit the bell notification icon and put all notifications on. I hear from a lot of my subscribers that they don't even get notifications when I post my videos. The year was 1993 and Aerosmith is on top of the world. After an incredible comeback in the mid-80s, they'd released a string of multi-platinum albums, capping it all off with the colossal success of Get a Grip. They were the undisputed kings of rock, having clawed their way back from the brink of addiction and obscurity to reclaim their throne. Now they were heading out on a massive tour with a whole grab bag of opening acts from Four Non Blondes to Collective Soul. But one name on that list that was a real head-scratcher, the thrash metal titans Megadeth. On the surface, it was a strange pairing. Megadeth's blistering technical thrash was worlds away from Aerosmith's bluesy hard rock. As Megadeth bassist David Ellefson later said, asking a fan to go from Hangar 18 to Love in an Elevator was a pretty big ask. The audience overlap was also questionable, to say the least. So why did the tour even happen to begin with? Well, the decision was a calculated risk from Megadeth's management. Frontman Dave Mustaine, a creative genius whose career was famously forced into conflict due to addiction, was newly sober and in a fragile state. Mustaine's handlers figured that to keep him sober, he needed to be on a sober tour. It was a well-intentioned plan, but it was all about to backfire spectacularly. Almost immediately, the Dream Tour started to feel more like a nightmare. From Megadeth's point of view, they weren't getting the respect a multi-platinum band deserved. According to David Ellefson's autobiography, the problem seemed to kick off just 2 shows in. Megadeth was supposedly denied proper sound checks, a disaster for a band known for its technical precision. Their stage space was cramped, and they weren't even allowed to use their own backdrop. They felt less like metal giants and more like a generic low-tier opening act who hadn't proven themselves yet. For a band that had, of course, paid its dues, it was a major slap in the face. An interviewer for the Houston Press at one of the early shows on the tour noted that Mustaine's angry and combative attitude, which he wasn't hiding from the audience. He felt that the promises made about playing time, sound, and stage production had all been broken. On top of the professional insults, there was a delicate personal dynamic. Steven Tyler, who'd famously conquered his own demons years earlier, took a personal interest in Mustaine and Ellefson's sobriety. Ellefson remembered Tyler coming into the dressing room to play peacemaker. He'd asked, "Guys, what's up? What's the problem?" Mustaine laid out all of his frustrations, the sound checks, the backdrop, the feeling of being disrespected after paying their dues. Ellefson thought it was a classy move, a genuine effort from a rock icon to try to smooth things over. Tyler even offered his personal support, giving them a contact and promising to help however he could. But for all of Tyler's goodwill, nothing actually changed on the tour. The production problems continued and Mustaine's mood, well, just got darker. As the tour dragged through its first week, the tension was so thick that you could cut it with a knife. While Steven Tyler was trying to be supportive, other people in Aerosmith's camp were just getting tired of the constant drama. One person working with Aerosmith later called Dave Mustaine a giant pain in the butt. The source claimed he would just piss and moan and whine. The feeling was that Mustaine's real problem wasn't the stage setup, it was the guys in Aerosmith weren't hanging out with him. This clash of personalities was probably inevitable. A story from the tour really shows you the different worlds these guys were living in. Mustaine recalled a moment when Steven Tyler introduced him to his wife by saying, "This is Dave Mustaine, he is Megadeth." When Mustaine corrected him, pointing out there were 4 members, Tyler apparently shot back, "Bullshit. You're Megadeth and I'm Aerosmith." To Tyler, it might have seemed like a comment on branding and being a frontman, but to Mustaine, it felt like his bandmates were being completely dismissed. The bad vibes didn't stay backstage either. They started to spill out into the open. During one show, someone threw an Aerosmith t-shirt on stage. According to a report in Spin magazine, Mustaine picked up the shirt, pretended to blow his nose in it, and tossed it back. The simmering disrespect was about to boil over. There's one simple rule for every opening act: you don't badmouth the headliner. It's a rule that Mustaine was about to break in the most spectacular way possible. The breaking point finally came during a radio interview. A DJ in Houston, Texas asked Mustaine why Megadeth wasn't playing a longer set, and he unleashed the comments that would detonate the tour. His infamous reply was a direct shot at the very band that gave him a spot on their stage. He said, "Yeah, I think we ought to be headlining, but we don't mind because everyone knows this is Aerosmith's last hurrah." Some reports claim the quote was even worse, something along the lines of, "We don't have much time to play because Aerosmith doesn't have much time left to live." In 1993, this wasn't just an insult, it was completely ridiculous. Aerosmith was in the middle of one of the biggest career comebacks in music history, with a #1 album and sold-out arena shows. They were anything but over the hill. For Joe Perry and Steven Tyler, who had fought so hard to get back on top, this was an unforgivable public slap in the face. The backlash was both immediate and brutal. When a reporter asked Steven Tyler about Mustaine's comments, his reply was dripping with sarcastic wit, stating, "Dave, we'd like to help you out. Which way did you come in?" There was no second chance, no discussion. The decision was made. Apparently, after only 7 shows, Megadeth was unceremoniously fired. The band didn't even get the news from Aerosmith's management. As David Ellefson wrote in his book, they found out that they'd been kicked off the tour while sitting in a Mexican restaurant in Lubbock, Texas. A waitress casually mentioned she'd heard another band, Jackal, was opening for Aerosmith that night instead of them on the radio. It was a humiliating end to a tour that started with such high, if totally misguided, hopes. In the aftermath, both sides scrambled to control the story.
In other Aerosmith news, the veteran band has unceremoniously dropped Megadeth as the opening act on its U.S. tour after only 3 shows. The split occurred after a concert in Houston last Sunday when Aerosmith singer Steven Tyler said to Megadeth frontman Dave Mustaine, "We'd like to help you out. Which way did you come in?" Says Aerosmith guitarist Joe Perry, "Dave Mustaine just wasn't happy and we don't want to tour with anyone who isn't having a good time." A Megadeth press release says the band left the Aerosmith tour by mutual agreement because of artistic restrictions and that the group wasn't being perceived as the multi-platinum unit that it is. Mustaine was considerably more forthright during an appearance on Houston radio station KEGL on Sunday night when, among many other things, he said of Aerosmith, quote, "We don't mind if they headline because this is their last hurrah. Soon they'll be dead." Megadeth has been replaced for the rest of the Aerosmith tour by Jackal.
Megadeth's label Capitol Records put out a statement claiming that the band had decided to quit the tour because of artistic restrictions. This spin painted Megadeth as the victims, unable to perform under the thumb of the headliner. Mustaine tried to save face, saying, "It's hard to dunk on someone when they're walking away." Aerosmith's camp had a very different version of events. They insisted that Megadeth was fired, plain and simple, because of Mustaine's behavior. Joe Perry didn't mince words in an interview with Entertainment Weekly, basically calling Megadeth soft for not being able to handle a major tour. He stated, "With Megadeth, we thought we had a hard-rocking animal that would lubricate the first 10 rows and get the audience ready for us." The message was clear. Megadeth hadn't done their one job and had become more trouble than they were worth. Joe Perry later summed it up more directly, stating, "Dave Mustaine just wasn't happy and we don't want to tour with anyone who isn't having a good time." The public feud was on, with 2 totally different stories battling it out in the press. Looking back, was the clash just bound to happen? Well, all the evidence points to yes. It was a collision of different eras, different musical styles, and most importantly, clashing personalities. On one side, you had a headliner that demanded professionalism in a drama-free zone. On the other, you had an opening act led by a frontman who felt disrespected and was publicly battling his own personal demons. In later years, Mustaine looked back on the whole thing with a bit more perspective. He admitted to the Houston press, "That was a very different Dave before I was saved." He even owned up to the fact that some jealousy was probably involved, saying, "I wanted my life to be better, and I saw that theirs was because they had gotten sober. So yeah, we were probably a little snotty." The infamous 7-show tour remains a legendary cautionary tale in rock history. It shows just how fragile things can be on a major tour where egos, sobriety, and respect are always in a delicate balance. One side saw it necessary firing to keep the ship from sinking. The other saw a premature ending caused by broken promises. The truth, as it usually does, is probably somewhere in the messy middle. So what do you guys think? Was Aerosmith right to fire Megadeth, or was Dave Mustaine justified in his anger? Whose side are you guys on? And let me know in the comment section below. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again on Rock Roll True Stories. Take care.